Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, in 2002, there was the first World Urban Forum held in Nairobi, Kenya. Last month, we held Africa Urban Forum again in Nairobi, Kenya. Today, we have come for the 13th World Urban Forum here in Baku, in this great country, and I want to thank His Excellency President Ilham Aliyev for his welcome and his hospitality extended to us. Excellencies, this is a most consequential forum because of the exigencies of housing in almost every country. Statistics show us that 3 billion people suffer from inadequate housing. 1 billion people live in slums, and 300 million people are homeless. These are not cold statistics. These are not numbers. These are people. These are families. These are children. And that is why this meeting in this great city with a great history is important. Article 25 of the Declaration of Universal Human Rights affirms that housing is a right. And today, as we are in Baku, we have a serious housing challenge globally, and the right under Article 25 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is breached. Let me take this opportunity to give you Kenya's perspective. We have 1,100 informal settlements. We have 7 million people living in these informal settlements. And as a result, we took the decision that it was not tenable, it was not right for us to continue in this trajectory. And therefore, we took the housing program as a central pillar of our development program. And what did we do? 3 things. Number one, the biggest constraint to housing was availability of land. Number 2, the challenge was cost of construction. And number 3, it was financing housing. How did we solve this problem? Number 1, we made it mandatory that all public land be available for housing without charge, free of charge. That removed 30% of the cost of housing. Number 2, we decided that we are going to reduce the cost of construction. How did we do it? 2 things. Number 1, we negotiated with professionals, architects, quantity surveyors, electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, and all the professionals in that space. Because they were building 10, 20 houses a year, we offered them to build 3,000, 4,000 houses a year. They reduced their cost of supervision and professional cost, from 10% of the cost to 2.5% of the cost. Number 2, we also standardized construction sizes, and we standardized construction materials. Doors became the same size, windows became the same size, and all the other construction materials, and therefore it became possible to produce these construction items en masse, and therefore reduce the cost. And number three, how did we deal with financing? We decided to take one dedicated financing mechanism. We passed the law, established a housing fund, charged a housing levy, and today we have a dedicated funding mechanism financed by locally mobilized resources to build houses. What is the outcome? I will tell you what the outcome is in Kenya. In the last 3 years, we are building 273,000 housing units. 8,000 keys have been handed over. 55,000 keys will be handed over before the end of this year. And we have a pipeline of 700,000 housing units. I can say with confidence that today in Kenya, we have the largest housing program in the continent of Africa. Let me also say the following. We have mobilized, because of our housing fund, we have mobilized $5 billion from local or domestic resources. We haven't borrowed a single shilling from the World Bank. We haven't borrowed a single shilling from any other institution. This is locally developed resources. We have, as a result, employed 640,000 young people, architects, quantity surveyors, masons, carpenters, electricians, and all the other professionals. And we are on the way to hiring 1 million young people in the short term. And number three, we have begun the journey of reversing slum growth. In fact, in the city of Nairobi, we have started to remove slums, to replace them with decent housing. And number five, we have reduced land fragmentation. We now have more land to do agriculture because we are consolidating settlements in proper organized cities. I am giving the Kenyan perspective because I had my sister Sarah from my neighbor country in Uganda, and she made a very fundamental statement. She was just wondering how it is possible for a person in a slum to be able to live in a skyscraper on the 11th floor. Let me tell Sarah, it is possible. We have done it in Kenya. The cost of a social house on the 11th floor is the same as the cost of a slum dwelling house. They used to pay $40. They now pay $40 on the 11th floor because we have set up the mechanism for that to happen. Finally, let me speak to two paradoxes. As I stand here, 25% of the world's population will be living in the African continent by 2050. If there is a place that housing is important and urgent, it is in our continent. Why? Because that is where the world population, a quarter of the world population will be living. And 70% of that population will be living in urban centers. And therefore, housing becomes a central pillar of how the world will look like in the future. And that is why it is important for this meeting to focus on two items. We have a serious paradox. A continent that has huge resources, that will have the world's largest population, 25% of the world's population by 2050, today cannot access concessional funding to drive its development. Much more important, housing, because today African countries and emerging economies pay 2, 3, 4 times more to access development financing because of elements of risk. We need to correct this paradox, and that is why we have said there is urgent need to reform the international financial architecture so that it is aligned to the needs, the requirements, and the imperatives of the current world. Most of our countries did not exist in 1945 when the Bretton Woods institutions were established. Today, we do not have enough voice, we do not have enough access, and even the paradox is that the countries who need concessional funding the most pay more than the countries who don't need it when they go to the market. That has to be corrected. And that is why we are of the firm position as African countries that we need the reform of the international financial architecture so that it represents the exigencies of the present. And finally, we need to correct another paradox, that 1.5 billion people in the African continent, the largest body of membership of the United Nations, 55 countries from Africa, are not represented at the highest decision-making organ of the United Nations Security Council. And the bigger paradox is that 60% of the agenda of the United Nations Security Council are African issues. What a paradox, that your issues are being discussed on a table that you are not represented. And that is why we are saying, for the survival of the United Nations, there must be reform that corrects this anomaly, that brings justice, so that the United Nations and the United Nations Security Council specifically becomes representative, democratic, and brings on board the views of the African continent. That is how we are going to solve the problems of the present and figure out how we are going to have a better future. In Baku, we have the opportunity to influence and to change the cities of the future and make them livable, sustainable, and good for everybody. I thank you.
The Executive Director of UN Habitat, the distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Sarah Nandudu. I am the National Coordinator of the National Slum Dwellers Federation of Uganda. We are affiliated to Slum Dwellers International, which is a global network of the people who stay in informal settlements or call them slums. Many of us do not want to hear the word slums, but the reality is they are slums. We prefer a soft language of informal settlements. However, we belong to SDI, which is Slum Dwellers International. I'm very, very happy and excited to be invited as the people who stay in informal settlements, most specifically in the slums, to come and share our ideas on what we think is happening and what we think should be happening. Very grateful to UN Habitat through the leadership of Mama for accepting and recognizing that informal settlers or urban dwellers do have a voice to speak, but also have a bit of solutions to what is happening around the globe. Very excited to hear from different speakers who spoke here. And to me, the language is the same. We speak the same language. We speak same problems, but seems the gap is around the innovations to intervene the challenging issues that we go around in cities. Today we are talking about housing the world. And of course the main focus we are looking at is the safe, resilient, and communities. But are we really speaking the same language when we speak of what is being guided on here? Those are questions that all of us should be able to say. As SDI, or as Slum Dwellers International and the rest of the grassroots people, we want to say we have mobilized ourselves. We have collected data, community-led data. We have engaged different stakeholders. We have engaged governments. We have solutions to some of the problems. However, we are challenged with lots of challenges, such as policies that do not favor communities. You find that here we come and declare a lot of policies. We are all shouting community involvement, community participations, but when we go back home, the reverse is true. We have had countries where evictions are a big challenge to informal dwellers or slum dwellers. But yet we are saying resilient cities. We are talking of including communities. But back home it is a different story. We are yet to hear a lot more for us to engage with different partners, especially governments, to find solutions to housing, especially in slum communities. Because it looks like in slum communities, the solution is eviction. I have not heard anyone speak here about eviction, but it's what is happening back home. My only thinking and our own suggestion here is, let us sit together, let us plan together, let us engage one another for practical solutions to housing, because you can never build a house in planet air. You can only build a house on land, but yet land has become for big gangs in cities. I don't know whether those are inclusive cities, but I think to be exclusive cities, because now a poor person can't afford a city, which shouldn't be the case. So what are we trying to say as grassroots people? We are saying, please work with communities. Please put proper policies that are pro-people, policies that support inclusive engagements, policies that support inclusive development, policies that are pro-poor. Yes, we are not saying we do not want policies. We are very much abide by with policies, but can we have policies that are supporting me to stay in the city and have a right to the city? The fact that I'm staying in the slum, there is a reason why I left my home country to come to the city. Therefore, let us work together with government and different agencies to allow us participate and be part and parcel of the cities. But also we request that we recognize the initiatives that communities have already engaged in. We have lots of community-led data that is already packed that we can use to implement solutions in slum communities. We have a lot of information on housing. We have a lot of information on how people stay in these settlements. We are only waiting for partners who are ready to come and work with us. But above all, we want to say that we open channels of financial flow to the marginalized communities. finances that can be accessible by a poor person but can be able to afford a home. I was excited when they opened up with a video of that old mom who had her children from a funny house she had to a small, nice, beautiful house. That is what we yearn for as informal dwellers. We are not saying do not build your skyscrapers, build them, but can I afford it? Many of us say affordable housing in cities, but honestly speaking, someone who is pushing a wheelbarrow, someone who is lifting luggage in a market, someone who is selling tomatoes, can that mother afford a skyscraper? Why don't we join hands with this woman and do in situ slum upgrading other than evicting that mom? She has children to pay fees, she has children to raise, she needs to keep her life going, she has a small job in the city, but our job is to bulldoze her out of the city. Humble request to everyone here, kindly support the marginalized communities, kindly hear our voices, kindly take us to your tables and we discuss tangible solutions that favor you governments and favor communities. We are saying, let us plan together, let's co-plan, let's co-invest, and let's co-create the will for the people to own the city together with everyone. I say this for God and my country. Thank you so much.